My name is Clara Thorne, and until 6 months ago, my world was a quiet one, catalogued and shelved like the books in the children's section of the Port Blossom Public Library where I work. It was a life built of small, sturdy things, the scent of old paper and binding glue, the hushed whisper of turning pages, the wide, trusting eyes of a child lost in a story. My studio apartment was small, my savings smaller, but my life felt rich in its own quiet way, a narrative I was writing one peaceful day at a time. I clutch grandmother Eleanor's hand-stitched quilt, rubbing the worn, soft cotton between my fingers. The pattern is a kaleidoscope of faded florals, each patch a remnant of a dress she once wore, a story I can almost remember. The funeral home smells cloyingly of lilies and lemon polish, a sterile scent designed to mask the untidiness of grief. I've found a small alcove behind a monstrous fern, a quiet corner from which to watch my family perform their sorrow. My mother, Isabel, sits in the front row, a vision in bespoke black silk. She dabs at her dry, perfectly made-up eyes with a linen handkerchief, letting out a soft, theatrical sob whenever a new guest arrives. Her grief is a well-rehearsed production. Every few minutes, she slips her phone from her clutch, angling it for a subtle selfie with the casket blurred artfully in the background. "The lighting in here is simply tragic," she murmurs to my father, reviewing the shot with a critical eye. My father, Richard, stands by the entrance, not greeting mourners, but pacing, his phone pressed to his ear. His voice is a low, urgent growl. "The market doesn't wait for personal matters, Jonathan," he hisses. "Liquidate the tech stocks. All of them. Yes, now. A personal matter." That's what the death of his own parents has become, an inconvenient dip in his portfolio, a distraction from the ticker tape of his life. My brother, Leo, is a study in slouching indifference. He's sprawled in a velvet armchair, the blue light of his phone illuminating his face. He's not scrolling through memories or condolences, he's tracking the frantic dance of cryptocurrency charts. He hasn't looked up once, not even when old Mrs. Gable, our grandparents' housekeeper for 30 years, placed a trembling hand on his shoulder. I close my eyes, and the sterile scent of the funeral home fades. I'm 10 years old again, standing on a stool in Grandma Eleanor's kitchen. The air is warm and sweet with the smell of rising bread and cinnamon. Grandpa Arthur's large, flour-dusted hands are guiding mine as he teaches me to knead the dough. "Patience, little songbird," he'd say, his voice a low, gentle rumble. "Good things take time. You can't rush what's meant to grow." A single, hot tear escapes and traces a path down my cheek. A real one. Later that week, we are assembled in the offices of Finch and Associates. Mr. Samuel Finch, my grandparents' attorney for as long as I can remember, has an office that smells of old books and Earl Grey tea. It's a sanctuary of polished mahogany and leather-bound volumes that speak of history and permanence. Mother immediately positions herself in the grand leather chair opposite Mr. Finch's desk, arranging the drape of her dress as if for a magazine shoot. Father stands behind her, his hands resting on the chair's back, a posture of proprietary authority. "We should probably list the Juniper Point house by the end of the month," Isabel says, examining her manicure. "The summer market is strong, and that waterfront view is a prime selling point. The bakery assets need to be assessed quickly, too," Father adds, his tone all business. "Vance & Sons has brand recognition, but it's dated. We'll need to modernize to attract the right kind of corporate buyer." "Hold on," Leo cuts in, finally looking up from his phone. "I've already had preliminary talks with an investor group about the distribution fleet. My new logistics app could revolutionize their whole system. That capital would be crucial for my next funding round. They are carving up a life that has barely ended, vultures picking over the warm remains of my grandparents' legacy." Mr. Finch clears his throat, a quiet, deliberate sound that commands an immediate silence. His gaze finds mine for a brief moment, and in his tired eyes, I see a flicker of something I can't quite name: pity, perhaps, or warning. He pulls a thick, cream-colored envelope from a drawer and places it on the desk between us. As the executor of the estate of Arthur and Eleanor Vance, He begins, his voice formal and steady. I am bound to read their last will and testament precisely as it was written. My family leans forward, a collective intake of breath. The air crackles with anticipation. Mr. Finch adjusts his spectacles and begins to read. The legal jargon flows over mech clauses and codicils, assets and holdings until he reaches the heart of the document. He pauses, takes a slow, deliberate breath, and his eyes meet mine again. I hereby bequeath my entire estate, with a current estimated value of $18 million, solely and entirely to my beloved granddaughter, Clara Elizabeth Thorne. The silence that follows is absolute, a vacuum that sucks all the air from the room. I blink, my mind struggling to process the words. Entire estate? 18 million? I'm sorry, Father says, his voice dangerously low, I must have misheard you. There has to be a mistake, Mother insists, her practiced smile melting away to reveal a mask of disbelief and fury. Leo shoots to his feet, his chair scraping violently against the hardwood floor. He points a trembling finger at me. What did you do? He demands, his face contorted with rage. How did you poison them against us? The accusation is a physical blow, stealing my breath. I didn't, I stammer, my voice a broken whisper. I had no idea. Mr. Finch holds up a hand for quiet. He turns to his credenza and retrieves a laptop. Arthur and Eleanor anticipated this reaction, he says softly. They prepared a final message for you all. He turns the screen to face us. My grandparents appear, sitting on their favorite porch swing overlooking the Sound, the late afternoon sun casting a golden glow around them. They look frail, but their eyes are clear and resolute. If you are all watching this together, Grandpa Arthur begins, his voice weaker than I remember but still full of its characteristic warmth, it means our final wishes have likely caused some disagreement. Grandma Eleanor's gentle voice picks up the thread. Richard, Isabel, Leo. We love you. But love does not mean being blind. For years, we have listened. We've heard the whispers about when the old folks are gone, the plans for our money made while we were sitting in the next room. My throat constricts. I remember now. The hushed phone calls I'd walk in on. The investment opportunities my father was always pitching. The way my mother would appraise the antique furniture with a collector's cold eye. I was the one dropped off for weekends at their cozy, unassuming house while my parents attended galas and networking events. I was the one who learned to change the spark plugs on Grandpa's old delivery van, the first vehicle in what became a successful regional fleet. I was the one who sat with Grandma for hours, learning to darn socks and bake her famous honey oat bread, learning to value the work of one's hands over the flash of a credit card. Clara was the only one who ever saw us, Grandma says, her eyes shining with unshed tears. Just us. Not as a means to an end, but as family. She loved us for who we were, not for what we had. The video fades to black. Mr. Finch closes the laptop with a soft, final click. The tension follows us into the parking garage. Father corners me against the cool metal of my beat-up sedan, his face inches from mine. You will sign over control of the assets to me, he says, his voice a low, menacing command. You can keep a 10% allowance. It's more than you deserve. Darling, Mother purrs, appearing at his side, her concern as false as her eyelashes. This is far too much for you to handle. The complexities, the taxes. You're simply not equipped for this kind of responsibility. Leo looms behind them, a resentful shadow. Don't forget who your family is, Clara. Don't forget who looks out for you. The threat hangs in the air, unspoken but clear. I clutch my car keys, the metal teeth digging into my palm. I need some time, I manage, my voice trembling but firm. I need to think. Father's face hardens. Think about this, he snarls. I am the guarantor on your apartment lease. One phone call, and you're on the street. Think about that. They turn and walk away, a unified front of righteous indignation. I stand frozen, the keys biting into my skin, the impossible weight of $18 million and the crushing burden of my grandparents' trust settling upon me. That night, the four walls of my tiny apartment feel like a cage. Panic is a wild bird beating its wings against my ribs. My whole life is in this roomy: books, my thrift store furniture, my small collection of teacups. My librarian's salary barely covers my rent and utilities. I have no safety net. I sink onto my bed, the quilt clutched in my fist, when a loud, insistent pounding on my door makes me jump. Building management, a gruff voice yells. Mandatory plumbing inspection. My phone rings. It's Mr. Finch. Clara, he says, his voice sharp with urgency. I just got a call from Richard's lawyer. They're filing a motion to have you declared incompetent. They're trying to lock you out of your apartment right now. It's an illegal eviction, but they're counting on you not knowing that. You have to get out of there. Now. Tears blur my vision as I grab a backpack and shove in the few things that matter: my grandparents' photo album, a change of clothes, the quilt. My hands are shaking so violently I can barely work the zipper. I never imagined that inheriting a fortune would make me homeless, that it would leave me more terrified and alone than I have ever been. But as I slip out the back fire escape, the quilt wrapped around my shoulders like a shield, I can almost hear Grandpa Arthur's voice on the salty port blossom breeze. Patience, little songbird. Sometimes you have to stand your ground to protect what's meant to grow. The next day, a persistent drizzle paints the world in shades of gray. I pull my old car up to the gate of the Juniper Point house. It's not a mansion, not like the glass and steel monoliths that have sprouted up around it. It's a rambling cedar-shingled home, nestled amongst old firs and rhododendrons, looking more like a comfortable old sweater than a piece of prime real estate. I sit for a long time, watching the rain trace paths down the windshield, my heart a frantic drum against my ribs. 24 hours ago, I was a librarian. Now I'm a fugitive from my own family, about to claim a house that feels as foreign to me as a palace. The front door swings open before I can reach it. Mateo Rojas, my grandparents' property manager and friend for over 2 decades, stands in the doorway. His kind, weathered face is etched with a sorrow that mirrors my own. Miss Clara, he says, his voice thick with emotion. Welcome home. I step inside, the familiar scent of beeswax, old books, and a faint trace of cinnamon enveloping me like a hug. It smells like safety. It smells like them. Your grandmother left this for you, Mateo says, pressing a small, ornate brass key into my palm. She said, if things go the way I fear they might. He leads me to Grandpa Arthur's study, a room paneled in warm oak and dominated by a massive desk. The key fits a locked drawer at the bottom. Inside is a collection of leather-bound journals, tied with a simple blue ribbon. Eleanor's journals. She said you would know what to do, Mateo says, giving my shoulder a gentle squeeze before leaving me in the quiet solitude of the room. I curl up in Grandpa's deep leather reading chair by the unlit hearth, tucking my feet beneath me. With trembling fingers, I open the first journal. The entry is dated 5 years ago. Richard visited today. He needed another bridge loan for a new venture. Something about sustainable real estate in Arizona. When Arthur hesitated, Richard reminded us how much Leo's tuition was costing, how Isabel needed to maintain her position on the symphony board. We wrote the check. Arthur believes his son will make good on it this time. I am not so certain. It's the hope that hurts the most. My stomach clenches. I flip forward a few months. Richard has not mentioned the loan. When I brought it up gently, he laughed and said his memory must be better than mine, because he was sure he'd paid it back. Arthur told me to let it be. It's only money, Eleanor, he said. But it isn't. It's the dishonesty. It's the slow, steady erosion of trust. Page after page tells the same heartbreaking story. Isabel brought an interior designer with her today, just for fun. They walked through the house, taking measurements and photographs. I overheard Isabel telling her, all of this dreary old stuff will have to go. Later, I found her in the dining room, taking detailed pictures of Arthur's mother's silver service. She claimed she was looking for inspiration for a charity luncheon. The study door creaks open. Mrs. Gable enters, carrying a tray with a steaming teapot and a single cup. Her eyes, usually so bright and discerning, are red-rimmed. "You're reading her diaries," she states, her voice soft. "Did you know?" I ask, gesturing to the open pages, my voice hoarse. "Did you know all of this was happening?" She sets the tray down with a quiet clink. "I kept my own records," she says, her voice firm. "Mrs. Vance asked me to." She leaves the room and returns a moment later with a sturdy banker's box. It's filled with files and ledgers. Loan agreements your father never honored. Business proposals from your brother, funded by your grandfather, all of which failed. Invoices for your mother's decorators, her caterers, her designers. All quietly paid from your grandparents' accounts. She places a slim folder on the very top. "And these," she says, her lips tightening, "are copies of legal documents your mother tried to have Mrs. Vance sign during her last hospital stay. She told her they were just updated power of attorney forms. They were, in fact, property transfer deeds." My hands shake as I spread the papers across the desk. It's a meticulous, devastating history of exploitation. They were draining them, piece by piece, dollar by dollar, for years. They were bleeding them dry, I whisper, the words catching in my throat. "Your grandfather always wanted to see the best in his son," Mrs. Gable confirms, her gaze distant. "Your grandmother. She saw the truth." I find a final, heartbreaking entry, dated last Christmas. "Leo was here for dinner. He drank too much of Arthur's good whiskey. After he thought we had gone up to bed, I heard him on the phone with Richard. 'Just be patient,' he said, his voice slurring. 'Once the old birds kick the bucket, we'll be set for life.' Arthur's grandson, laughing about his death. I didn't have the heart to tell Arthur. Sometimes, a secret is the only kindness you have left to give. I remember that Christmas. I had taken the bus up from the city, exhausted from working extra shifts to afford the ticket. I remember Mother commenting on my faded cardigan at the dinner table, while Leo showed off a new luxury watch. The doorbell chimes through the quiet house. Mrs. Gable glances at the clock on the mantel. "That will be Miss Croft and Mr. Finch." Genevieve Croft enters first. She was my grandfather's business manager for 30 years, a sharp, elegant woman with silver hair and an intellect to match. She carries a thick leather portfolio. "Clara," she says, taking my hand in her firm, cool grasp. "I've brought the complete financial portfolio. It's important you understand the full scope of what you are now protecting." Mr. Finch follows, his briefcase tucked under his arm. "I've drafted the preliminary injunctions," he says, his tone all business. "We need to move quickly." We gather around the large oak dining table, a small, unlikely council of war. They lay it all out for me: true value of the bakeries, the investment accounts, the real estate holdings. They reveal the intricate web my grandparents wove, not of wealth for its own sake, but of a legacy built on integrity and hard work. And they show me, with devastating clarity, how my own family has been trying to unravel it, thread by thread. My phone buzzes. It's a voicemail from my father. I play it on speaker. "You have no idea what you're messing with, Clara. This can end nicely for everyone, or it can get very, very ugly. The choice is yours." As we are mapping out our first steps, the doorbell rings again. A courier delivers a plain manila envelope. No return address. Inside are childhood photos of me, happy pictures of me with my grandparents. Across each of my faces, a crude X has been drawn in red marker. "This is escalating," Mr. Finch says, his face grim as he carefully places the photos in an evidence bag. "Isabel has been calling the library, telling your boss you're having a mental breakdown." Leo has started a social media page questioning your undue influence on your grandparents. Richard has been contacting Hearthstone Bakery's main suppliers, spreading rumors about the company's instability. My teacup rattles in its saucer as I set it down. What do? We file for emergency protective orders, Mr. Finch says, pulling a set of prepared documents from his briefcase. With Mrs. Gable's testimony and Eleanor's journals, Judge Peterson won't hesitate. There is one more thing, Mrs. Gable says quietly. Mrs. Vance had a small cottage over in Cedar Cove. She put it in a separate trust years ago, under your name. It's not part of the main estate. She said it was to be your safe harbor, in case of a storm. I think of the children at the library, the story hour circle that will be missing its reader. I'll have to take a leave of absence. The weight of it all, the sheer ugliness of it, threatens to crush me. I walk out to Grandma Eleanor's garden, the drizzle now a soft mist. The rose bushes are heavy with buds, ready to burst into bloom. She won't be here to see them. I never wanted any of this, I whisper to the damp, fragrant earth. I just wanted you. But as I look back at the warm, lighted windows of the house, where my grandparents' true family now sits, planning my defense, I realize they left me so much more than money. They left me the truth. And they left me the people who would help me fight for it. 3 days later, my morning tea grows cold as I stare at the front page of the Port Blossom Chronicle. The headline is a punch to the gut: Family alleges elder exploitation in Vance Bakery fortune. My hand trembles as I read the quotes from an unnamed family source, detailing concerns about Eleanor's diminished mental state in her final years. My phone chimes with a text from Mr. Finch. Richard has filed an emergency petition with the court, challenging the will on grounds of incompetence. Stay strong. Call me. Before I can, a notification from my mother's social media feed pops up. It's a screenshot of her on a local morning talk show, dabbing her eyes as she speaks of her deep concern for her mother's vulnerability. The caption reads, "A daughter's heartbreaking fight to protect her mother's true legacy." The walls of my grandparents' study, my sanctuary, suddenly feel like they're closing in. I set my phone down, face down, and take a long, slow breath, the way I teach the children at the library to do when they're feeling overwhelmed. A soft knock precedes Mateo's entry. "Miss Clara, I think you should see this." He holds out his tablet, showing a social media page Leo created overnight, the Vance Legacy Preservation Fund. It's filled with old family photos, carefully cropped to exclude me, and posts about honoring Arthur and Eleanor's true intentions. It already has over 500 followers, many of them people I've known my whole life, leaving comments of support and concern. Ms. Croft called from the main bakery, Mateo adds, his kind face grim. 3 of their biggest restaurant clients received anonymous tip-offs this morning, warning of an impending leadership crisis and supply chain disruptions. They're attacking on every front, I say, my voice sounding hollow and distant in the quiet room. Your grandfather was a fighter, Miss Clara, Mateo says gently. He built this business through 2 recessions and a fire that nearly destroyed everything. He never backed down from a bully. He gestures toward a bookshelf. Perhaps it is time you read his journals, too. In the room that still smells faintly of my grandfather's cherry pipe tobacco, I take down a worn, leather-bound ledger. The first entry is from 1978. The bank turned us down for the expansion loan. Said a small, family-owned bakery couldn't compete with the new supermarket chains. Eleanor wants to mortgage the house to raise the capital. I told her no. We will not risk our home. We will build this brick by brick, loaf by loaf, the right way. When the world tells you to quit, that's when you roll up your sleeves. I trace the elegant, faded script with my finger, feeling the strength in the words he wrote over 40 years ago. There's a quiet determination in his prose, an unshakable belief in the value of hard work and integrity. There is more, Mateo says, opening a drawer in Eleanor's writing desk. He pulls out a small, unlabeled USB drive. Mrs. Vance had me install a few security cameras last year. Small ones. Your parents never knew. On my grandfather's desktop computer, we watch the footage. The clips are time-stamped the afternoon of the funeral. We see my father and Leo moving through the house, not grieving, but appraising. They open drawers, check the hallmarks on silver, look up the value of paintings on their phones. We see my mother tucking a set of porcelain figurines into her oversized handbag. We see them methodically looting the home of the people they were supposedly there to mourn. They were stealing, I whisper, a cold, hard anger solidifying in my chest. The security chime on Mateo's phone beeps. He checks the monitor. They are at the front gate, he says, his voice tight. All three of them. My heart begins to pound a frantic rhythm against my ribs. I move to the study window and peer through the curtains. My father's sleek black sedan, my mother's luxury SUV, Leo's obnoxious sports car, they sit idling outside the wrought iron gates like a fleet of invading marauders. Shall I call Mr. Finch? Mateo asks. I straighten my shoulders, picturing my grandfather's determined handwriting. When the world tells you to quit, that's when you roll up your sleeves. No, I say, my voice surprisingly steady. Let them in. I'll handle this. I walk to the intercom panel by the front door. My father's voice, artificially pleasant, crackles through the speaker. Clara, honey, open up. We're just here to pick up a few of your grandmother's things. Sentimental items she promised us. I press the talk button. I'll meet you on the front steps. The summer air is warm and still as I stand alone on the wide, stone steps of the porch. I had Mateo open the gates. I want there to be witnesses. My father strides forward first, radiating an aura of boardroom authority. My mother follows, a portrait of tasteful sorrow, while Leo hangs back, looking sullen and uncomfortable. This farce has gone on long enough, Clara, father announces, his voice booming across the manicured lawn. We are here to collect your great-grandmother's china and the heirloom jewelry. As is our right. Those items are specifically named in the will as part of the estate bequeathed to me, I say. My voice doesn't shake. A will signed under duress, by a woman who was clearly not in her right mind, mother interjects, her voice dripping with false sympathy. Sweetheart, you are in over your head. Let us help you. Leo makes a move to push past me. I'm just going to go up to my old room and get some of my... He stops mid-sentence as a series of soft clicks echo around the property, followed by the whir of small motors. Red indicator lights begin to blink discreetly from the eaves of the house, the fence posts, and the ancient oak tree by the drive. A new security and surveillance system, I explain calmly. Everything from this point forward is being recorded and streamed to a secure cloud server. My mother gasps, clutching her pearls. You're treating your own family like criminals? She sways dramatically, her hand flying to her forehead. The crunch of gravel on the driveway announces more arrivals. Mateo walks around the side of the house, a clipboard in his hand. Miss Clara, as requested, here is the complete, notarized inventory of the home's contents, cross-referenced with the insurance appraisal. Mrs. Gable appears next, her small frame radiating an unshakable dignity. I have already provided a sworn affidavit to Mr. Finch, detailing the items I witnessed you removing from the premises on the day of the funeral, she announces, her clear voice carrying across the lawn. A modest sedan pulls up behind my family's cars. Ms. Croft gets out, followed by 3 of the longest-serving managers from the Hearthstone bakeries, all wearing their company polos. We came to show our support, Clara, Ms. Croft says loudly. Arthur and Eleanor built their company on a foundation of loyalty. We stand with their chosen successor. Finally, Mr. Finch's car glides to a halt. He steps out, holding a sheaf of papers. Ah, Richard, Isabel, Leo. Perfect. You've saved me a trip. I have here copies of the restraining order, effective immediately. My father's face turns a blotchy, furious red. My mother, seeing her audience grow, seems to forget her impending swoon. Neighbors have begun to drift out of their homes, drawn by the commotion, watching silently from their lawns. Finding a strength I never knew I possessed, I take a step forward. "This stops now," I say, my voice ringing with a clarity that surprises even me. "You have spent years taking, manipulating, and deceiving. You have tried to smear my name and destroy the legacy my grandparents built. But their real legacy isn't the money. It was their integrity. It was their kindness. And it's something you will never be able to touch." A white news van from a local station slows to a crawl at the end of the driveway, its camera operator already filming. "Who called the press?" my father snarls, his composure finally cracking. "I did," calls a voice from across the street. It's old Mr. Henderson, holding up his cell phone. This is a quiet neighborhood. We look out for our own. For the first time since this nightmare began, I see genuine fear in my father's eyes. He glances from the growing crowd to the news camera to the legal papers in Mr. Finch's hand. "This isn't over," he mutters, but the threat is hollow. He is already backing away, retreating toward the safety of his car. Mother, miraculously recovered, scurries after him, shooting a venomous glare in my direction. Leo lingers for a moment, his gaze meeting mine. I see a flash of something in his eyes. Is it guilt? Regret? Then my father barks his name, and the moment is gone. He turns and follows them. That evening, I stand alone in my grandparents' bedroom. It has been left untouched, a perfect museum of their life together. Eleanor's knitting basket sits by her chair, a half-finished blue scarf still on the needles. Arthur's reading glasses rest on his nightstand next to a dog-eared history book. The grief I have been holding back with anger and adrenaline finally breaks through. I sink onto the edge of their bed, the hand-stitched quilt pulled around me, and I weep. I weep for their loss, for the ugliness of my family, for the quiet, simple life that has been stolen from me. "I don't know if I can do this," I whisper into the silent room. "I don't know if I'm strong enough to be who you thought I was." Dawn finds me still sitting there, the first pale light filtering through the lace curtains Eleanor crocheted herself. Something inside me has shifted. The storm has passed, and in its wake, there is a quiet, unshakable resolve. Later that morning, my team assembles in the study. Mr. Finch with his legal strategies, Ms. Croft with her business acumen, Mateo and Mrs. Gable with their intimate knowledge of the estate. I take my grandfather's seat behind the big oak desk. It no longer feels too big for me. "We are done being reactive," I tell them, my voice firm. "From now on, we build. We honor their legacy not just by protecting it, but by making it grow." A soft knock on the door interrupts our planning. Mrs. Gable enters, carrying a dusty box from the attic. In my grandmother's elegant script, the label reads simply, "For Clara. In case of Richard." Inside, nestled amongst years of meticulously documented financial records and even a few covertly recorded conversations, is a small, leather-bound book wrapped in oilcloth. My breath catches in my throat. It's Arthur's original business ledger from 1962, the year he bought his first delivery van. It contains the founding charter of the company, with bylaws he and Eleanor wrote themselves, bylaws that make the line of succession ironclad and legally incontestable. Our meeting continues with a renewed sense of purpose. For the first time since that day in the lawyer's office, I feel not just the weight of my grandparents' trust, but the strength of it, too. I feel my own backbone, forged in the fire of the last few days, finally solidifying. A week later, I sit at that same oak desk, the morning sun streaming through the window, the scent of salt and pine in the air. The desk no longer feels like my grandfather's, it feels like mine. "Mr. Henderson," I say into the phone, my voice confident and clear, "this is Clara Thorne at Hearthstone Bakeries." "Yes, Arthur's granddaughter. I'm calling to discuss a new profit-sharing initiative for all long-term employees. I believe it's what my grandfather would have wanted." The day is a whirlwind of proactive decisions. I meet with the bakery managers, not as an inheritor, but as a leader. My grandparents believed a business is a family, I tell them. And we are going to start acting like one. Expanded health benefits, a new educational grant program for employees' children, and a significant investment in updating our equipment. The news is met not with suspicion, but with a wave of relief and heartfelt applause. It feels more real, more satisfying, than any applause my mother ever sought. That afternoon, I'm on a call with the director of the Port Blossom Community Food Bank. Dr. Anya Sharma? This is Clara Thorne. I'm the new director of the Vance Family Foundation. My grandmother was a great admirer of your work. We'd like to fund your mobile pantry initiative for the next 5 years. My work is interrupted by a text from Mr. Finch. Richard's attorneys are requesting a settlement meeting. They're bleeding money and their reputations are in tatters. Minutes later, an email arrives from my mother's account. It's a rambling, self-pitying tirade about how I've destroyed the family, punctuated by a not-so-subtle request for a small stipend to help her maintain her social standing. I delete it without replying. The final piece of their failed campaign arrives by courier, a poorly assembled binder of evidence meant to prove my manipulation. It's a pathetic collection of out-of-context photos and forged letters. I almost toss it aside, but a single page catches my eye. In their haste, they've accidentally included a printout of an email chain between themselves, dated 2 weeks before my grandmother's death, strategizing how to have her declared incompetent so they could seize control of her assets. They've handed us the gun, the bullet, and a signed confession, Mr. Finch says with a dry chuckle when I forward it to him. The following week, my father makes his last stand. He arranges to speak at the Port Blossom Chamber of Commerce annual luncheon, an event he has dominated for years. Our sources tell us he plans to use the platform to publicly decry my actions and paint himself as the wronged son fighting for his family's honor. Are you ready for this? MS. Croft asks as we pull into the country club parking lot. I was born ready, I say, and for the first time, I believe it. The large banquet hall goes quiet as we enter. I can feel hundreds of eyes on us. My father, standing near the podium, glares as we take our seats at a table near the front. He doesn't wait long. Before the salads are even served, he strides to our table, his voice pitched to Carrie. There she is, he booms, the girl who tore her own family apart for money. Before I can even form a response, the chamber president, a kindly man named George Bell, stands up and taps his water glass for attention. Actually, Richard, he says into the microphone, we have a special presentation today. For 40 years, Arthur and Eleanor Vance were the heart of this community. They quietly supported dozens of local charities and provided stable, dignified work for hundreds of people. This year, we are posthumously awarding them the Port Blossom Legacy Award. And we are honored to have their chosen successor, their granddaughter Clara Thorne, accept it on their behalf. The room erupts in a standing ovation. As I walk to the podium, I see my father's face, a mask of stunned disbelief. My mother's smile is frozen, a grotesque caricature. My grandparents believed that a legacy isn't something you leave behind, I say, my voice steady as I accept the heavy crystal award. It's something you build every day, in the lives you touch. The Vance Family Foundation will continue that work, starting with a $1 million endowment to create a new vocational training wing at the Port Blossom Community College. The announcement is met with another roar of approval. The rest of the luncheon is a blur of handshakes and heartfelt stories from people my grandparents had helped over the years. My family slips out a side door, unnoticed. The fallout is swift and decisive. My father's business partners sever ties. My mother is quietly asked to step down from her charity boards. Leo's latest startup, already on shaky ground, loses its remaining investors. The first crack in their resolve comes 3 nights later, a phone call just before midnight. It's my mother. Her voice, for the first time, sounds genuinely broken. I never wanted it to be like this, Clara, she sobs. Your father. He pushed so hard. The next day, a text from Leo. Dad's a mess. I didn't know about all the loans. I didn't know how bad it was. Can we talk? Mr. Finch receives a call from their attorney the following day. They want to capitulate. That night, I sit on the porch swing where I last saw my grandparents in that video message. The breeze smells of roses and the sea. Victory feels quiet. It feels heavy. Standing your ground, I write in my own journal, doesn't always feel like winning. Sometimes it just feels like surviving. A week later, I stand at the head of the long oak dining table. I have placed my grandfather's antique pocket watch in the center, its steady ticking marking the seconds. This is not a negotiation. It is a conclusion. They file in, looking diminished and tired. My father's bravado is gone, replaced by a sullen resentment. My mother's eyes are puffy and she wears no makeup. Leo won't meet my gaze. Mr. Finch has arranged it all. He sits to my right. To my left are two people I asked to be here, Judge Peterson, retired but still the most respected legal mind in the county, and Maria Flores, the head of the bakery's employee union. They are not here as legal counsel, but as witnesses. As keepers of the community's trust. What is this? Father demands, his voice a weak echo of its former power. This is the end of it, I say calmly. I slide 3 identical folders across the polished wood. This is my one and only offer. Inside each folder is a proposal. A modest trust will be established for each of them, enough to live comfortably but not extravagantly. The funds will be dispensed monthly, contingent on 3 conditions. They return every single item they took from the house. They sign a legally binding agreement to never contact me or any employee of the business or foundation again, and they issue a public retraction of all their false claims. Or what? Father scoffs, but there is no fire behind it. Or, Mr. Finch interjects smoothly, placing a much thicker folder on the table. We proceed with criminal charges for theft, fraud, and elder abuse, supported by the evidence in this file including your own emails detailing your intent. I suspect a jury will be very interested to hear Mrs. Gable's testimony. Silence. The only sound is the ticking of the watch. 10 minutes pass. 20. Finally, with a hand that trembles with rage and defeat, my father snatches a pen and signs. My mother follows, her signature a messy scrawl through her tears. Leo is the last. He looks at me, his eyes full of a complicated misery I can't begin to unravel. Then he signs his name, closing the final chapter of our life as a family. They leave without another word. As the front door closes behind them, a profound quiet settles over the house. Judge Peterson gives my shoulder a supportive squeeze. Maria Flores smiles a small, warm smile. Arthur would be proud of you, kid, she says. You've got his spine. I pick up my grandmother's half-finished scarf from her knitting basket. I never wanted the money. I just wanted my family. I know, Mr. Finch says, as if reading my mind. And that, Clara, is precisely why they chose you. Outside, car engines start and then fade into the distance. I am the keeper of their legacy now. Not their fortune, but their values. And I understand that some boundaries, once drawn, are not meant to be crossed again. 6 months later, the nameplate on my office door at the Port Blossom Public Library still reads, Clara Thorne, Children's Librarian. It is the title I still hold most dear. The library's new literacy garden, funded by a grant from the Vance Family Foundation, is flourishing just outside my window. This morning, a feature in the State Business Journal sits on my desk, praising Hearthstone Bakery's innovative new employee ownership program. My grandfather's trucks still crisscross the state, but now, the people driving them own a piece of the company they are building. Miss Thorne, my assistant says, peeking her head in. Your scholarship students are here. In the conference room, 5 bright, nervous, hopeful teenagers are waiting. They are the first recipients of the Arthur Vance Vocational Scholarship. As I explain the program, full tuition, paid apprenticeships, a toolkit of their own upon graduation, I see my grandfather's belief in the dignity of skilled labor shining in their eyes. My grandfather believed in building things that last, I tell them. You are a part of that now. Later, I drive back to the house on Juniper Point. It no longer feels haunted by the ghosts of what was, but filled with the warmth of what is. The long dining table, once the site of so much greed and sorrow, is now set for a celebratory dinner. Mrs. Gable, Mateo, Miss Croft, and Mr. Finch, me chosen family, are all here. We toast with sparkling cider to the Foundation's first successful quarter. That night, curled in my grandmother's reading chair, I flip through my journal. The frantic, terrified entries of 6 months ago have given way to recipes from Mrs. Gable and notes on gardening from Mateo. Progress, I realize, is often quiet. My phone buzzes. A text from an unknown number. It's a picture of Leo, standing in front of a small, rented workshop. He's holding a piece of furniture he's clearly just built. The caption is simple, starting over. The right way this time. I don't reply, but I feel a flicker of something that isn't anger or pity, but a distant, quiet hope. On my 31st birthday, my friends surprise me with a small gathering in the Rose Garden. There are no extravagant gifts, just a collection of thoughtful treasures, a rare first edition of my favorite childhood book, a hand-thrown pottery mug, a jar of homemade jam. Miss Croft raises her glass. To building a life, not just inheriting one. At sunset, I walk down to the small grove of new trees we planted at the edge of the property, one for each scholarship recipient. A small, simple bench sits at the center, a brass plaque gleaming in the last light of the day. It reads, "A legacy is measured in love." I open Eleanor's final, empty journal and, on the first blank page, I begin to write. I look up at the house, its windows glowing with a warm, welcoming light, and I feel a profound sense of peace, a wealth that no bank account could ever hold. The greatest inheritance they left me, I realize, was not their fortune. It was the chance to discover myself.